Patterns of Inheritance by Mia Wilson. Mendelian patterns of inheritance. What is it? In Mendelian patterns of inheritance, offspring inherit one trait from each parent in the separation of two alleles. In complete dominance, the dominant allele hides the recessive allele, which basically means that the recessive allele will not show through or be present in the offspring. In Mendel's law of segregation, it describes the inheritance of a single character, which means that when alleles segregate in the gamete formation, half of them will receive one trait and the other half will receive another trait. And after this, the gametes unite randomly, forming the offspring. The law of independent assortment shows that each pair of alleles segregate independently from other pairs during gamete formation, and this can be uncovered by tracking two characters at once. Cat Mendelian inheritance sample problem. In cats, black fur is dominant to gray fur. Also in cats, green eyes are dominant to yellow eyes. These represent the genotypes and phenotypes of the cats. So we're going to be using blue for the black fur, and purple for the gray fur, green for the green eyes, and pink for the yellow eyes. Capital F, capital E, lowercase e is crossed with a cat with the same genotype. What are the possible genotypes and fractions of the offspring? So in order to set up our Punnett square, we have to figure out what we are going to put on the top and the side. So we can just do a cross right here with the two genotypes. And to figure this out, we're going to use the FOIL method, which basically just means first, outer, inner, last, and we can just figure out where the letters need to go. So now that we know where the letters need to go, we can set up our Punnett square and our dihybrid cross. So now that our Punnett square is set up, we can start crossing the two genotypes of the cats. So now to figure out the fractions of the offspring, we need to figure out which cats have the black fur and the green eyes, which cats have the black fur and the yellow eyes, which cats have the gray fur and the green eyes, and which cats have the gray fur and the yellow eyes. So since the black fur is dominant, any genotype with a capital F in it will have black fur because it is dominant and it hides the recessive lowercase f. So now we're going to be looking for the green eyes, which is dominant, so anything with a capital E will have green eyes. So the question is asking which ones have black fur and green eyes, so anything with the blue and green both shaded is going to be our answer, and we just counted 9 out of 16. Now we're looking for black fur and yellow eyes, and we don't have to do the black fur because we already figured out which ones have black fur, and we just need to figure out the yellow eyes, so anything with two lowercase e's, because it's recessive, will have yellow eyes. And so now we can count which ones are blue and pink, and we just counted 3 out of 16 will have black fur and yellow eyes. So now looking at gray fur and green eyes, gray fur is homozygous recessive, so anything with two lowercase f's will have gray fur. And we want it to be green-eyed, so anything that has the purple and green will be gray fur and green eyes. And we just counted 3 out of 16. And now the last trait is gray fur and yellow eyes, which we already have figured out. And there's one left, and that means it is 1 out of 16. Codominance patterns of inheritance. What is it? Codominance means that when the alleles from both parents are given to the offspring, they are both shown through as a blend of the two alleles. RRRR would result in a red cow as shown in the top left corner of the example picture, and this is the homozygous dominant allele. RWRW would result in a white cow as shown in the top right-hand corner of the example picture, and this is the homozygous recessive allele. RWRR would result in a blend of red and white, or a spotted cow as shown in the middle of the example picture, and this is the heterozygous offspring from the two parents. Codominance inheritance sample problem. Blue and white feathers can be present in birds. Homozygous dominant birds are blue, homozygous recessive birds are white, and heterozygous birds are blue and white, which we can also use the abbreviation BW. So we can label our homozygous dominant capital B, because capital letters represent dominant alleles. And we can label our homozygous recessive as lowercase b, because lowercase letters represent recessive alleles, and our heterozygous as capital B, lowercase b. If a blue bird and a WB bird mated, what is the percentage that the offspring will be blue? So we can go ahead and label our Punnett square because we know we are doing a blue bird and a WB bird, so we can label the top as blue with the capital B because it is homozygous dominant, and we can label the side of it as WB with a capital B and a lowercase b because it is heterozygous. So now we can cross the two birds and we get two uppercase BBs and one uppercase B, lowercase b, and another uppercase B, lowercase b. So as you can see, we have two homozygous dominant bluebirds and two heterozygous white and bluebirds. And we can just label that over here as a homozygous dominant. And we can also label the heterozygous birds. And the question asked what percentage of the offspring would be blue, and we know we have 2 out of 4, or 1/2 of them, that are homozygous dominant BB, and that is equal to 50%. Question number 2. If you wanted to breed 100% BW birds, what would the phenotype of the mother and father be? So we know it's asking for the phenotype, so it's going to be a color, which means it could be either white, blue, or BW. And we know that we are breeding 100% BW birds, so that means we are going to have all of our babies as heterozygous. That means one parent is going to be passing down the capital B all of the time, and the other parent is going to be passing down the lowercase b all of the time. So the parents' genotypes would need to be capital B, and lowercase b, which means we would have a white mother and a blue father. And we can just label that right here on the side. And the crossing works in the Punnett square. So now I'm just showing that there's a capital B from the father in all of the chances, and there's a lowercase b from the mother in all of the possibilities of the babies. So this means the parents' phenotypes would need to be white and blue. Question number 3. What would happen if you tried to breed a white bird with a WB bird? A. Probability of having a bird with blue feathers. B. Probability of having a bird with BW feathers. And C. Probability of having a bird with white feathers. So off to the side, I'm just going to make a little key so that we remember what our genotypes are. So for a bluebird, we have capital B. For a BW bird, we have capital B, lowercase b, and for a white bird, we have lowercase b. So we know that the question is asking what would happen if we crossed a white bird and a BW bird, so I'm just labeling the top as white with the two lowercase b's, and the side as BW with the uppercase B and the lowercase b. So now if we cross, you will see that we get a capital B, lowercase b, which is 2 heterozygotes and 2 recessive homozygotes. And here I'm just labeling that the are heterozygotes, and we know that there's 2 out of 4 of them, which means there's 1/2, which means there is 50% of them. And here we know that this is homozygous recessive, and we know that there are 2 out of 4 of them, which is the same thing as 1/2, which is also the same thing as 50%. So the question asked how many would have white feathers, and we know that there are 50% of them that will have white feathers. The other question asks how many would have BW feathers, and we know that also 50% of them will have BW feathers. And the last question asks how many would have blue feathers, and we know that none of them are homozygous dominant, so that means 0 out of 4, which is the same thing as 0%. So we saw in this problem, and in especially problem number 2, that when the alleles from both parents are given to the offspring, they are both shown through as a blend of the 2 alleles. So when the homozygous recessive alleles from the white bird and the homozygous dominant alleles from the blue bird were both given to the babies, we came out with a blue and a white bird. Incomplete dominance patterns of inheritance. What is it? Incomplete dominance reveals a new phenotype which is a mixture of both of the parents' phenotypes. CB would result in a blue puffball as shown in the top right corner example picture, and this is the homozygous dominant allele. CY would result in a yellow puffball as shown in the middle right side of the example picture, and this is the homozygous recessive allele. CY would result in a green puffball, which is a mixture of the 2 colors as shown in the bottom right corner of the example picture, and this is the heterozygous offspring. Incomplete dominance sample problem. A zookeeper has just discovered a new animal species he likes to call puffballs. He has so far come across some puffballs that are blue and some puffballs that are yellow. He decided to cross the blue puffball and the yellow puffball together and found that the offspring baby was a green puffball. What type of inheritance did the zookeeper observe? So we know that this indicates incomplete dominance, because if the blue and yellow puffballs mix and create 100% green puffballs, this means that it is a completely new colored baby, and it is not a blend of the 2 colors, it is a new color all in all. So it's incomplete dominance and not codominance. What is the genotype of the green puffball if the blue is capital R, and the yellow is lowercase r? So we know we are trying to figure out what the genotype of the green puffball is. And we can just write down that the blue is the homozygous dominant individual and the yellow is the homozygous recessive individual. So we can label our Punnett square as blue at the top, and we can label the yellow on the side, which will be the 2 lowercase r's. And if we cross the 2 parents together, you will see that we get 100% heterozygous babies. And since we know that all 4 out of 4 babies are green, we can see that the green genotype is going to be capital R, lowercase r for the baby. Multiple alleles patterns of inheritance. What is it? Multiple alleles inheritance is another pattern of inheritance that is different from the others. Although individuals carry 2 alleles for a gene, in some circumstances more than 2 possible alleles exist in the population. So the homozygous dominant individual has type A and B blood, and the homozygous recessive individual has type O blood, and the heterozygotes could be either AO for A blood type, BO for B blood type, or AB for a codominant blood type. Multiple alleles inheritance sample problem. Example 1, feather color in pigeons. BA is the dominant allele, which means it has ash red feathers. Capital B is recessive to BA, but also dominant to lowercase b, which means it has blue feathers, and lowercase b is recessive, which means it has chocolate feathers. So I'm first going to highlight all of the dominant alleles, which is the BA. And next I'm going to highlight the capital Bs, which are the recessive allele to BA. Now I'm just highlighting the lowercase b's, which are the recessive alleles. And last but not least, the capital B, which is dominant to lowercase b. So for the phenotypes, we know that BA is the dominant allele, so anything that has BA in it is going to be ash red. So that means the first one should be ash red. And the second one should also be ash red because it has BA in it. The next one would be blue because it has a capital B, which would normally be recessive to BA, but since there's a lowercase b next to it, it is dominant, so it's going to be blue. The next one has two capital B's, so that means it has blue feathers. This one has two lowercase b's, which means it has chocolate feathers. And this last one has the dominant allele, so it means it is going to be ash red. So the first three genotypes and phenotypes are going to be heterozygous because they have two different alleles in them. The next one is homozygous recessive because it has two recessive B's. And the next one is also homozygous recessive because it has two lowercase recessive B's. And the last one is homozygous dominant because it has two dominant alleles. Using a Punnett square, show a cross among an ash red heterozygous male who also carries the chocolate allele, and a blue heterozygous female. So we know it's ash red, which means it's going to have BA in it, because BA is the dominant allele, so we can put that here. And since it also carries the chocolate allele, we're going to put the lowercase b. And as we wrote up before, the blue heterozygous female will be uppercase B, lowercase b. So now it is time to cross the two parents. So now that we have crossed the parents, we can conclude that the ash red babies, there will be 2 out of 4 of them because there are 2 out of 4 that have the dominant allele, which is the same thing as 50%. And there is 1 out of 4 blue babies because there's 1 out of 4 that has the capital B and the lowercase b, which is the same thing as 25%. And there will be 1 out of 4 chocolate babies because there is 1 out of 4 that has the 2 lowercase b's, which is also 25%. Sex-linked patterns of inheritance. What is it? Sex-linked genes reveal a unique pattern of inheritance, and besides having genes that just determine gender, the sex chromosomes also have genes for individuals different from femaleness or maleness. An example of a carrier female would be capital X, capital H, capital X, lowercase h, and an example of an affected female would be capital X, lowercase h, capital X, lowercase h. An example of an unaffected male would be capital X, lowercase h, capital Y, and an example of an affected male would be capital X, lowercase h, capital Y. And sex-linked disorders are more common in males because they do not have the same backup chromosome that females do. So in this example, if they get at least 1 lowercase h allele, they will automatically have the disease, whereas if a female were to have 1 lowercase h, they would just be a carrier and they wouldn't actually have the disease. Sex-linked inheritance sample problem. 2 normal vision parents produce a colorblind son. Draw a pedigree that includes every person mentioned in the story. Include a Punnett square of the parents. So after reading the story, we know that the son is colorblind, so we can just label that here on the pedigree, and we also know that the parents are unaffected and normal, so we can label that here as well. So now looking at our genotype key, we see that an affected male is X lowercase hy, so we can write that in our pedigree right here. So now we have to figure out what the genotypes of the parents are, and since we know that they are both normal visioned and unaffected, we can rule out the affected genotype. And since the father cannot be affected, this means he has to be healthy, so his genotype is automatically XHY. So now looking at the mom, we have to figure out if she is a carrier or if she is healthy. So now looking back at the son, we see that he has a recessive gene on the chromosome. So the mother cannot be healthy because if she was healthy, she wouldn't have the recessive gene. So this means she has to be a carrier. So now we can go fill out our Punnett square. And on the top we have a carrier mother, and on the left we have a healthy father. After filling it in, we know that we have a healthy female, a carrier female, a healthy male, and an affected male. So knowing this, we can tell that the genotypes are XH, X lowercase h for the carrier mother, and XHY for the healthy father. So now we can just fill in our pedigree with that information to complete it. So question B asks, what are the chances of their next child being a colorblind daughter? So if we look back at our Punnett square, we see that they only have 2 daughters, and there's a 0% chance that they will be colorblind because the daughters are healthy and a carrier. Question C, before having this first child, what is the probability that this couple will have 3 children all healthy? So going back to our Punnett square, we see that these are the 3 healthy children, which means that there is a 3 out of 4 chance that their child will be healthy. And in order to figure out if their next 3 children will be healthy, we have to multiply it 3 times by itself, and that gives us 9/64. And that is the probability that they will have 3 children all healthy. Patterns of Inheritance, Biology Honors, Period 7 by Mia Wilson.